Hello everyone and welcome back to another average review. In my last video, which was a review of the DC Multiverse Nightfall Nightwing, I said I'd eventually be making a video on this guy. Well, that day has come, and today I'm gonna be reviewing the Mcfarlane DC Multiverse 3 Jokers Batman. Now, I got this figure loose, so luckily for both of us, I'm gonna skip over talking about the packaging and just get straight into the sculpting and paintwork. So overall, I gotta say, I am really happy with how this guy looks. I mean, just looking at the head sculpt first, it is a perfect encapsulation of Jason Fabok's art of Batman from the story Batman 3 Jokers. He's got the short ears and older, more angry face similar to the Dark Knight Returns Batman, which is honestly what this figure most reminds me of besides, obviously, the 3 Jokers storyline. The cowl has some very nice texturing on it, which actually goes for all the black parts of this figure, including the cape. But The Dark Knight Returns isn't the only influence on this version of Batman. If you look at the gloves, the logo, belt, and especially the boots and cape, you can tell this guy was pretty heavily inspired by the Michael Keaton version of Batman. And in fact, a lot of customizers turned this guy into a makeshift Keaton Batman when this figure came out, which was obviously before we got a proper Michael Keaton Batman in the Mcfarlane line. But hey, that's not all, since there's some pretty heavy animated series influence in terms of also the logo, and of course the color scheme, especially that yellow on the logo and belt and the gray bodysuit. Now, there is a lot I do like about this figure. I've said that already. The texturing and sculpt work is fantastic. The paint is great, even if mine is chipped, which is probably because I got it used. And overall, the musculature of this figure is spectacular, but there is kind of an elephant in the room, and that's the legs. Just look at how much longer they are compared to the torso and head. That's honestly the biggest problem I have with this figure's sculpt. The legs are just way too long, which actually goes for a lot of Mcfarlane DC figures, especially some of the older ones. But yeah, like I said, that's my biggest problem with this figure's sculpt, and honestly just with the figure in general. The legs look really disproportionate. Now, this next part isn't a complaint since it's accurate to the design, but I just wanted to mention something. The trunk piece on this figure is gray, which is accurate to the story. I just want you to remember that because we'll come back to it later. But of course, looks aren't everything. If you want a figure to be good, it's gotta have some pretty good articulation. So, let's see what 3 Jokers Batman can do, which, spoilers, if you've seen my video on the first appearance Batman, yeah, this guy shares a lot of parts with that one. So, his head articulation works pretty much the same, but it is a bit different, since instead of the articulation being at, the bottom of the skull, it's at the bottom of the neck. He gets a pretty good amount of looking up, a very good amount of down, tilt side to side, and all the way around, which is pretty ironic because of the similarities to the Michael Keaton Batman, since he couldn't do any of that. Moving down a bit, at the shoulders he's got a rotator cuff like all Mcfarlane DC Multiverse figures, but this one doesn't really get any movement. It's a pretty small rotator cuff. Granted, the arms do get some pretty good forward and back, and they raise above 90 degrees, which is pretty impressive. He's also got bicep swivel, which gives you turning all the way around, double jointed elbows with a pretty dang good bend, and of course the standard Mcfarlane wrist articulation, which can go in just about any direction. Now, 3 Jokers Batman has the standard diaphragm joint and ball jointed waist, but he does not get any hunch forward at all, which, yeah, that was also a problem with a lot of older, and hell, even new Mcfarlane DC Multiverse figures. They do not get much forward at all. His arch back, though? Pretty good, actually. He also gets twist and tilt side to side. Now he's got the standard McFarlane style hips, which can get a pretty good kick forward, a really good split, and honestly a pretty impressive amount of twist. He's of course got double jointed knees with a near perfect bend, and McFarlane ankle articulation, which can spin around, hinge backwards and forwards, pivot side to side, although not much in any of those fields, and also toe articulation. So overall, he's got pretty alright articulation. It's actually really good in stuff like the knees and the arms and the head, but I mean, that hunch forward, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. Moving on to the figure comparisons, and honestly, I'm just gonna breeze through these since I've done a pretty fair amount of Batman reviews where I go through mostly the same comparisons. Starting out, though, we have the standard male and female comparisons for this series, the Marvel Legends Renew Your Vows, Spider-Man, and Spinneret. For the two Superman bodies I have that actually scale well with this Batman, we have the Fleischer Studios Superman and the Page Punchers Superman 78. To complete the DC Trinity, we have the Last Night on Earth Wonder Woman, since unfortunately, the classic collector edition Wonder Woman is a pain to look for, and the upcoming Page Punchers first appearance version hasn't come out yet. Moving on to the Bat family, we have Damian Wayne and Tim Drake as Robin and Red Robin, respectively. For two versions of the original Robin, all grown up, though, we have Nightwing from the Bat Family 5-pack and Batman Nightfall. For two other very important Bat Family members, though, we have Batgirl from the Bat Family 5-pack and the Mattel DC Multiverse version of Alfred. Oh yeah, fun fact, this version of Barbara Gordon as Batgirl is actually a repaint of the one from the Three Jokers line. That leads pretty nicely into, well, the Joker, since this is the Three Jokers Batman. I've brought out the McFarlane Digital Silver Age version since I don't think it'd be controversial to say that this is the definitive DC Multiverse Joker. Moving through some other important villains quickly, we have Penguin from Arkham City and the DC Classic Riddler, the DC Essentials Catwoman and McFarlane animated series-inspired Mr. Freeze, and the Arkham City Killer Croc Megafig. There's one more thing I'd like to try, though, a head swap between Three Jokers and the first appearance Batman. The Three Jokers head on the first appearance body is, don't get me wrong, a pretty cool look if you prefer a short-eared Batman, but you also really dig the first appearance costume. But the real star of the show, in my opinion, is the first appearance head on the Three Jokers body. I'm not exactly sure what this reminds me of in particular. Probably a specific look for Batman from an animated movie or a specific comic, but I don't know what I can say other than it looks really, really good. But moving back to the base figure and the regular comparisons, here's the McFarlane Three Jokers Batman with Hit Monkey and Goliath. Now, before I move on to everything else, there's one more thing I wanted to cover about this figure in terms of customization, which is the trunks. You know how I mentioned earlier that they're gray because, well, they are? That gray is actually painted over the original color the trunks are molded in. So if you take some acetone with a Q-tip over the trunks, well, you can actually get the classic black trunks on the outside, which does kinda complete the animated series look. Now, I do gotta commend McFarlane for their creativity of being able to have their cake and eat it too, in terms of having the classic trunks and also just having gray pants to be accurate to the story. But, yeah, I felt like this was too important not to mention and show off, and also, I was just gonna do this anyway because I vastly prefer having the trunks. Also, in case you're wondering, this is the same case for the Bat Family 5-pack version of Batman, which is pretty much this figure, but with blue and gold instead of black and yellow. If you acetone the gray there, you get the blue trunks on the outside. Alright, back to the rest of the video, which was recorded before I tried this out. Now, with all the customizing, sculpt, paintwork, articulation, and comparisons out of the way, there's only a few more things to cover. For one, the accessories. Now, I don't have most of them. The 2 accessories I don't have being the standard Mcfarlane trading card and figure stand. But I do have the one accessory he can actually hold, that being his grappling gun, which is a pretty cool accessory. I mean, it is a pretty big grappling gun, but hey, it's a pretty neat display piece. Now, would I have preferred if he came with more accessories, like a batarang, or a grappling gun where the hook isn't shooting out? Yeah, of course I'd prefer that. Are you crazy? Also, some alternate hands that actually match the ribbed gauntlets he has would be pretty nice. There have been other releases of this figure on like the Hush body mold and stuff, which do have alternate hands, but they're smooth hands. They don't have the same ribbed gauntlets this one does. Alright, now for the most, I guess boring part of the video would be the right word, the price on this guy. For a while, I'd say 3 Jokers Batman, at least this version, was a bit of a pain to get, but nowadays the pricing on the aftermarket has actually gone down to between $15 and I'd say about $25, $26 loose. Which, hey, this is a pretty good figure, so that isn't awful. I actually got him loose at a New Jersey comic convention for about $14, which, yeah, that's a pretty good price for this guy. So, overall, what do I think of this figure? Well, this figure was considered one of the definitive versions of Batman by Mcfarlane for a pretty good reason. It's got fairly decent articulation, amazing sculpting, same for the paintwork, and one, I guess, alright accessory. There's also a lot of really good custom potential with this guy. But this figure is a fair bit old and it is showing its age. What with the weird leg proportions and lacking hunch forward and also lack of accessories other than a grappling gun. So overall, taking the pretty good positives and fairly obvious flaws into account, I'm gonna give the Mcfarlane DC Multiverse 3 Jokers Batman an 8 out of 10. I do find it mildly interesting that the Nightwing figure I reviewed had the opposite problems that this guy had. That one had a great base body, but the sculpting really interfered with the paintwork. Meanwhile, this guy has great sculpting and paintwork, but odd proportions and is lacking in accessories. But hey, for those of you still watching, first of all, thank you, I appreciate it, and also, have a great day, 'cause you deserve it. Bye-bye!